Good evening, everybody. We'd like to start handing out the resolutions. When your name is called, please come up and accept your resolution. First group of students we'd like to recognize are our middle school scholar athletes. First, from Avenel Middle School, Dylan Dacuna. Alexis D'Amelio. Laura Fitzpatrick. Tajazwi Nathan. Cassandra Langewal. Juliana Orzakowski. Jordan Perbilla. When your name's called, come on up. Ariana Sterlacy. Casey Turnbull. And Sofia Vasquez. Our Colonia Middle School scholar athletes. Jillian Carroll. Dylan Conklin. Valerie Covert. Christopher DiCarlo. Caitlin Dugan. Lauren Dugan. Brooke Feliciano. Kennedy Goncalves. Zoe Gotti. Gianna Grasso. Francis Malone. Alejandro Nowak. Erica Panone. James Rodas. Candace Rodenberg. Matthew Sherb. Matthew Tomshaw. And Gavin Yanetta. Ford's Middle School Scholar Athletes. Michael Barbado. Emily Burns. Genesis Cabrera. Joa Farinas. Aaron Gumbel. Riley Ivanitsky. Jocelyn James. Amber Miltonberg. Diane Pelays. Ryan Rivera. Justin Rodriguez. Mark Shimko. Michelle Solano. Joshua Vasquez. Nayeliz Vieira Colon. And Madison Yip. Scholar Athletes, Island Middle School. Amanda Castillo. Ishani Desai. Jesus Gonzalez. Sophia Hindi. Dakota Kaznowski. Marissa Lugo. Heather McKenzie. Abigail Powers. Alec Raj. Michaela Rios. And Ryan Samaru. Woodbridge Middle School, Scholar Athletes, Isaiah Allen. Jared Allen. Caleb Barahona. James Bolhauer. Jason Bradley. Glenn Cantalupo. Gerard Dormady. Anthony Guyron Gonzalez. Ty Kobalakowicz. Brett Lukacek. Richard Nagy. And Leo Wright. Now we'd like to honor our students who participated in Junior Youth and Government Day, also from middle school. Grace Darmandola from Avenel Middle. Simran Kaur, Avenel Middle. Emma Downs, Colonia Middle. Dylan Conklin, Colonia Middle. Deeksa Kachia, Island Middle. Josh Vera, Island Middle. Yaksha Seth, Island Middle. And Mamiya Nayeha, Woodbridge Middle. We'd like to recognize now more middle school students who participated in the Middlesex County Arts Middle School. Victoria Ben David, Colonia Middle School. Jada Dacuna, Colonia Middle School. Abigail DiNardo, Colonia Middle School. Arden Gonzalez, Colonia Middle School. Kayla Hackett, Ford's Middle School. Alyssa Koenig, Ford's Middle School. Milan Lagstrom, Ford's Middle School. Jolani Morales, Ford's Middle School. Jesus Styles Amezqua, Ford's Middle School. Ishan Ankulkar, Island Middle School. Grace Johnson, Island Middle School. And Aditya Katarita, Island Middle School. Next, we'd like to honor students from Island Middle School who participated in the 2017-18 Future City Competition, New Jersey Regional, and receives the Most Futuristic City Award for their use of futuristic engineering concepts into cities' communications, energy, and transportation systems in their design. Henna Jadhav. Kavya Patel. And Anayaya Roy. In the same competition, we had a group receive the Best Land Surveying Award for employing the best land surveying practices, taking into consideration the high standards used by surveyors to help protect the public's safety and welfare. Ayushi Shah. Rima Sharma. And Janavi Yandapali. More Future City Award winners. Aditya Parekh. Abba Shah. And Aisha Siddiqua. The following students were selected as winners for their mathematic excellence in the perennial math competition held at JFK Memorial High School on January 13th. From Island Middle, Namit Agarwal. Island Middle, Ishan Ankulkar. From G&T, Lohitask Arij. From G&T, Victoria Bartusik. From School 18, Priyanka Bist. From School 18, Pruthi Devi. From School 24, Arnav Yaga. From Ford's Middle, Ryan Gonzalez. School 18, Vanila Kanchala. From School 24, Kruthvik Ariun Marobina. From G&T, Eden Parajo. From School 24, Pratyush Shundar. And from School 24, Visrush Yandapali. Okay, now we have our Martin Luther King Essay Award winners. From School 1, Johnny Lee. Janae Lee. From 4 and 5, Shiza Jamal. From School 9, Nicole Vincent. From School 11, Savannah Taub. From School 18, Kinshi Dahlia. From School 19, Ruby Sinquingarna. From School 20, Aiden Russell. Happy birthday, Aiden. From School 21, Maya Antoine. From School 22, Brandon Davis. From School 23, Dia Shah. From School 24, Zaid Mohammed. From School 25, Matarusi Srinavoshan. From School 26, Jayla Sipersad. From School 27, Sydney Dowling. From School 28, Angelina Smulder. And we had one winner out of all of our elementary schools. We chose one best overall Martin Luther King essay, and that was from School 14, Eden Pajaro. Okay. We have a couple of other resolutions, a couple of other people we'd like to recognize. One goes to Tim Casey Jr., who's been a leading supporter of the Township School District, who coordinated a donation of 20 Dell computers from the Township to Colonia High School. Mr. Casey, thank you very much. Congratulations. Colonia Middle School teacher Jennifer Johnson has been selected to receive a 2017 BASF Science Education Grant in the amount of $5,000. Congratulations, Jennifer Johnson. Woodbridge High School teacher Heather Russell has been selected to receive the Joan Lavin Keats Social Justice Teacher Grant in the amount of $400. Congratulations, Ms. Russell. Courtney Villani, president of the Villani Bus Company, has generously made a donation to Lafayette Estates School number 25. Thank you, Ms. Villani. And finally, a student from Pennsylvania Avenue School number 27 suffered a life-threatening medical emergency during the school day on Thursday, January 11, 2018. Staff member Amy Skibar acted immediately in a crisis situation and utilized the Heimlich maneuver, which saved the student's life. Thank you, Ms. Skibar. Now, if there is anyone here whose name was not called, please come up and we can get well, your name was called, but if you didn't come up and get your resolution, please come forward now so we can get it to you. And that includes our resolution distribution portion of the meeting.
The February 22nd, 2018 meeting of the Woodbridge Township Board of Education will please come to order.
There you go.
Roll call, Mr. Secretary, and please make a note that Mr. Harris will not be attending tonight due to a personal loss in his family.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Del Pietro?
Here.
Mr. Molnar?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Sedana?
Here.
Mr. Tamburello? Here. Mr. Velez? Here. Ms. Zullo?
Here.
And Mr. Treebwasser.
Present. Mr. Della Pietro, will you please read the closed session statement?
Thank you, Mr. President.
We need the sunshine.
Okay.
You miss the sunshine?
I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary. Sunshine law.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies in which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted as follows. January 10th, 2018, it was emailed to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Municipal Clerk's Office, posted in Avenel Middle School and the Board of Education Administration Building.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Della Pietro, please read the closed session statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board must go into closed session in order to discuss subjects exempted from the public portion of our meeting. The discussions to be held in closed session will be regarding personnel matters. Any information regarding the closed session discussion will be released to the public when the reasons for discussing these matters in closed session no longer exist.
Thank you, Mr. Della Pietro. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. We'll return at 7 p.m. sharp. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Woodbridge Township District Honors Band was founded in 2012 in order to bring the finest musicians from all three Woodbridge Township high schools together in one advanced level ensemble. Not only does this ensemble give the students a chance to collaborate with students from other schools, but it also enables them to collaborate with staff members and professionals while performing advanced level pieces that they wouldn't typically have the opportunity to perform at the high school level. This year, the students were fortunate to have the opportunity to study with guest conductor Nicholas Santoro in a joint concert with the Central Jersey Wind Ensemble. Mr. Santoro has spent 37 years as a music educator in New Jersey with positions of Supervisor of Arts Education in East Brunswick and South Orange Maplewood, and currently serves on the faculty of the New Jersey Institute of Technology, Rutgers University, and Montclair State University. Tonight, the District Honors Band will perform Ride On by Chris Bernadas, conducted by Kevin Perdoni, and the Star Spangled Banner, conducted by Josh Cabrera. Please join me in welcoming the Woodbridge Township District Honors Band.
Please rise for a salute to the flag and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank the Woodbridge Township School District Honors Band. Special thanks to Mr. Perdoni and Mr. Guerrero. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to reconvene?
So motion?
Second?
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Delapietro?
Here.
Mr. Molnar,
Here.
Mr. Sedana?
Here.
Mr. Tamburello?
Here.
Mr. Velez? Here. Ms. Zullo?
Here.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Present. Dr. Zagel, will you introduce the student representative?
You want to do this first?
All right. Will someone make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meetings?
So motion.
Motion by Ms. Anderson, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Velez. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Mr. Secretary, please state for the record the notice of bids received by the board.
Mr. President, there are none at this time.
Mr. Secretary, please state for the record any communications or reports received by the board.
Mr. President, there are also none at this time.
Dr. Zaga, please state the record of superintendent reports for the month of January 2018.
Mr. President, I have the following reports to present to the board: the student registers and the security and fire drill reports, suspension reports for elementary and secondary schools, bomb threat reports, and the reports of the attendance officers.
Thank you, Dr. Zaga. Would you please introduce our student representative?
It'll be my pleasure. Malik George from Woodbridge High School. Malik is ranked number 1 in the class of 2018 out of 388 students. Malik has completed 4 honors courses, 12 AP courses, 4 college-level courses, and 1 dual enrollment college credit course. Malik scored a 750 in the reading section of the SAT and a 780 in the math section. Malik is also a member of the varsity tennis team, academic competition club, Interact and International Culture Club, prom committee, and You Got Brains. Malik plans on attending Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the fall and majoring in biological engineering. Malik?
Thank you, Dr. Zaga. Today, I will be going over some of the activities and accomplishments over the various schools in our district. Starting with Mobby Street School, grades 3, 4, and 5 are participating in the annual Jump Rope for Heart event. A congratulations goes to Tyler Simkovich, Divya Kumar, Sushrat Sarpadar, and Kayla Perinello for participating in the Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader with Mayor McCormick. Kindergarten and grade 3 students have created pen pals with students from school 26 and 23, and they collected over 7,000 items for the Middlesex County Food Drive. At Avenel Street School, the National Honor Society held a food drive for the Woodbridge Township Have a Heart food campaign. At Port Reading Avenue School, students participated for the Jump Rope for Heart event, raising over $4,000 for the Heart Association. Their winter chorus was held at the end of January at Woodbridge Middle School. Their 5th grade DARE graduation took place with the help of their DARE officers, Officer Frank and Officer Tracy, and their grades 1 through 5 have monthly seasonal STEAM afternoons. At Ford Avenue School, on World Read Aloud Day, their classes met with cross-grade level partners to complete an activity, and grade 3 writing program has opened up for students and parents, and that is currently in progress. At Menlo Park Terrace School, their PBSIS sponsored an indoor snow day where students dressed in the pajamas, ate ice cream, and played snow activities in their classrooms. Their students brought in over 900 food items for the Super Bowl community service. The food will be donated to the St. James Food Pantry. Their PBSIS organization sponsored Pizza Bingo on January 31st, and 5th graders participated in a story cafe on World Read Aloud Day. At Avenel Middle School, students recently participated in the Rutgers Athletic Outstanding Student Achievement Program. AMS is now a Future A school and is working towards their certification. Their AMS team placed 3rd at the recent perennial math competition. Special events at the school included the Junior Youth and Government Day celebration of Black History Month, and their Hoops for Heart fundraiser, which benefits the American Heart Association. Dr. Zaga hosted a drug abuse prevention parent forum at the school earlier this month, and their school has been also participating in the Woodbridge Township Have a Heart food drive. And now for Woodbridge High School. The boys bowling team has been recognized as the #1 team in the state after winning the state championship on February 12th. They accomplished this honor after previously winning the Central Jersey Group 3 sectional tournament, the Group 3 state tournament, the Tournament of Champions, Warren Wheeler champions, and 3rd place in the Joe Romer tournament, as well as White Division champions. Some honorable people on the team are James Stovigan, who had the 3rd highest game with a score of 268, and 3rd highest series with a score of 672 in the Bishop R tournament. 3rd highest series in the Warren Wheeler tournament. He bowled a perfect 300 game on December 27th. 1st place in the Woodbridge Singles Holiday Tournament. He was the GMC Athlete of the Week. and second place in the GMC individual tournament. John Drost bowled a perfect 300 game on December 20th. He placed second in the Woodbridge Singles Holiday Tournament and 31st place in the GMC individual tournament. Alex Silva placed fourth in the Woodbridge Singles Holiday Tournament. Jason Belowski placed fifth in the Holiday Tournament and 14th in the GMC individual tournament. Jeremy Soto placed 18th in the individual tournament. Nicholas Simone placed 29th in the individual tournament, and Joseph Palmer placed third in the Woodbridge Singles Holiday Tournament. The Future Business Leaders of America participated in the FBLA North Central Regional Competition event in December. David Redziniak placed fifth, and Vineet Sridhar placed sixth in computer problem solving. The Drama Club performed A Midsummer's Night Dream on January 16th with more than 30 students participating. The spring musical, She Loves Me, will be held on March 22nd through March 25th, and the Senior Citizen Free Preview will be held on March 20th. The Social Justice and International Culture Clubs raised $1,400 through T-shirt sales and bake sales for Hurricane Maria victims in Puerto Rico. The cheerleaders Raymani Ellington, Valerie Hinojosa, Crystal Solano, Mackenzie Bork, Kayla Rosario, and Madison Michaels have been selected to represent Woodbridge High School at Camp Cheer Hawaii at the campus of the University of Hawaii in Oahu this summer. Girls bowling placed third in the Bishop R Tournament, second place in the Charlie Simone Baker Challenge, third place in the Joe Romer Tournament, and they were White Division champions. Eliza Abreu placed third in the Woodbridge Township Singles Tournament and 16th in the GMC Individual Tournament. Brianna Talaka placed second in the Woodbridge Singles Holiday Tournament and 28th in the GMC Individual Tournament. And Megan Raimondo placed 29th in the GMC Individual Tournament. For wrestling, this is the sixth straight year that Woodbridge High School has had a county champion. Xavier Laracuente placed first in the Lakewood Invitational. Hunter Corrali placed first in the Lakewood Invitational as well. And Nick Nyers placed first in the Lakewood Invitational as well as first in the GMC tournament. For hockey, goalie Adam Godfrey has set the career record for the most wins with 36 and saves with 1,539. Girls winter track won the NJSIAA North Jersey Sectional 2 Sectional Championship on February 3rd for the first time in school history. The following four girls will be advancing to the NJSIAA group on February 16th. Trinity S. Eason, who won the 400-meter dash, placed second in the 800-meter run, and anchored the 4x400 relay. Kayla Davis, who placed fourth in the 400-meter dash, fourth in the 800-meter run, and ran first leg in the 4x400 relay. Catherine Catape, who placed sixth in the 800-meter run, and ran the third leg in the 4x400 relay. And Nia Anderson, who placed third in the 55-meter dash. On February 2nd, the girls' 4x4 relay team of Kayla Davis, Cameron Taylor, Captain Catape, and Trinity Eason won first place. On February 3rd, the girls' 4x400-meter relay team of Kayla Davis, Janice Igno-Bonera, Catherine Catape, and Trinity Eason ran in the prestigious Millrose Games at the New York Armory and won the bronze medal while running the second fastest time in New Jersey. For boys winter track, the following boys will be advancing to the NJSIA group meet on February 16th. Stephen Payne, who won the 800-meter run, Amir Mustafa, who placed second in the shot put, and Brandon Larac, who placed third in the 400-meter dash. The boys' 4x400-meter relay team of Brandon Larac, Donald Luxama, Nathaniel Nieves, and Stephen Payne placed third in the NJSIA North 2 Group 3 Sectional Championship meet. For girls soccer, Gabby D'Amelio has signed a national letter of intent to continue playing soccer on the Division I League at Iona College. And finally, for world languages, 24 students took the AAPPL exam in January to assess their proficiency in Chinese, French, and Spanish. 13 of those students have earned a New Jersey seal of biliteracy. The Chinese Honor Society, from February 6th to 9th, they participate in a Chinese immersion program hosting 6 high school students from China who are each partnered with a member of the Chinese Honor Society and attended their classes with them. Thank you.
Mr. George, it's young men like you that certainly do our community proud and makes me a lot more positive about what our future holds for our country.
Thank
Thank you very much. You're more than welcome to stay if you'd like for the rest of the meeting.
As much as I'd love to stay, I have a lot of work to do at home for
You are a
preparing for
bright
classes
young
tomorrow.
man, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd also like to recognize Mr. Lotman for showing up to support his student. Thank you, sir. Superintendent's agenda, Dr. Zaga.
Mr. President, I have 25 items to present to the board.
Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's agenda?
So motion.
I have a motion by Mrs. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Zullo. Are there any comments or questions by the board?
Mr. President,
Mr. Sedana.
I will be abstaining on number 14 under the name Akshar Siddhana.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Roll call.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar?
Yes.
As you mentioned, you're abstaining on
Number
item 14.
14.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Yes, and all others? Thank you. Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
On item number 14, I will be abstaining in the name Pamela Kaminsky, yes on all your items.
And Mr. Treebwasser?
I'll be also abstaining on item 14 in the name of Jonathan Treebwasser, yes on all other items. Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Just completed it.
I'm sorry?
We just completed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Policy and Planning, Mr. Molnar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pull it up on my iPad here.
That's it. Will you do curriculum?
The Policy and Planning Committee, on the recommendation of the superintendent, presents the following. I will be moving 10 items this evening.
I have a motion by Mr. Molnar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Anderson. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Please state your name, sir.
All right, David Pinkowitz, Island. I had a couple questions on item 8. There's a few different policies I wanted to ask about. One of them is policy number 4116, evaluation of teaching staff. One of the questions I had, and I've noticed this happening in more and more of my kids' classes, where they'll get this idea of reverse teaching, where there'll be videos that teach lessons that the kids will watch at home as opposed to being taught in the classroom, while they'll do other activities in the classroom. And the question I have related to evaluation of teaching staff, and this may be, and I don't know if this has been contemplated that much when you have your negotiations with the union or within this policy. Is there a review by the principals, by whoever's the reviewing person for that teacher, of these kind of assignments? Obviously not every assignment, but just simply like one of the things the policy talks about is observing teachers. Is part of that observation observing assignments? So if there's teaching happening outside the classroom, that the school district is aware and it's made part of the review of that particular faculty member. And I ask this in part because I've seen a varying quality of these videos. Some are very good. Others have pretty much ghastly errors of fact inside them and that aren't corrected, but go out to the kids. So the kids that are aware there's an error figure it out. The kids that aren't probably are confused. So that's my question related to evaluation, if you can answer.
Sure, Mr. Pinkwitz. The answer is yes, they are evaluated. And if you find something or you hear of something that you feel is done in error, then certainly you should let the superintendent's office be made aware of that. Okay.
And then the second one is relating, this is the second time this policy is being modified over the last several months, the intramural competition policy. And as you know, I've asked questions relating to the varsity letters. But one of the things I noted, and because I've observed the new regulations that were adopted in January, which are online, is the intramural competition policy as written appears to apply literally by its name even to intramural or interscholastic competition. So in other words, it's competition, it even specifies at some point with varsity letters, competition with schools outside the district or competition with other schools. And while the regulations as adopted don't appear to be consistent with that, or at least potentially are inconsistent with that statement by the board, which supersedes any regulations. And I ask that in part because introduced newly in this policy this month is some opioid information, and it specifically calls out cheerleaders, which, as I understand it, and I could be totally incorrect, but I know there's a competition squad which obviously does compete interscholastically like sports and like other activities. But my understanding also is the fall football cheer squad doesn't necessarily compete. They support the football team. And those may not be the same set of children that are on each squad. So the reason I ask that is because in the regulations, of course, when it tried to set out regulations, it made a minimum competition requirement, but then it did an odd thing which wasn't done anywhere else in the regulation, certainly not set out in the policy, of referring to events, not competitions or events, as if recognizing that there were some students intended to be covered or desired to be covered that are not competing at all. So they have events but not really competition, which is the part that I say is inconsistent between the policy and the regulation. So is the intent to include, and if it is the intent, I think it needs to be more clear elsewhere in the policy, is the intent to include cheerleading, as an athletic event? I think it is, but it doesn't, to be honest, the only mention it has is the new wording that's being entered today or in the first reading, and it doesn't exist anywhere else. And in other parts of the board's policies, you'll note where cheerleading is mentioned, it's specifically called out because it doesn't match, what was being discussed otherwise. So that's just my comment. If you'd like to respond, you can. If you don't, that's fine too.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to refer it back to the policy committee, and they'll review the language to make sure that it's consistent throughout. But it's certainly designed to encompass as many as possible and to make sure that it's an effective policy, to make sure that children are actually getting the best out of this that they possibly can.
Okay, thanks.
Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes. Curriculum agenda, Mr. Tamburello, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Curriculum Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 10 items. This evening, I move for the adoption of the foregoing 10 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Tamburello. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Delapietro. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public?
David Pinkowitz, Island. Item number 8, the pilot programs, there's digital photography 3R, U.S. History 3R, and meteorology at Woodbridge High School. 2 questions. One, it says at no cost to the district. Who is bearing the cost of these new curriculum items?
Dr. Zaga?
Mr. President, Mr. Pickowitz, that it's intent to mean that we're not going to buy new books for that curriculum. So there's, or if we are getting books or any materials being donated.
They're being donated, okay.
What happens, excuse me, what usually happens in these cases, we're such a big district, if we want to try a pilot program, we can usually have, the textbooks companies will give us a class set as a trial. And then if we like it, if we expand the pilot, then next year it would be purchased.
Okay, and then one question about the content of the curriculum, specifically U.S. History 3. So where does that separate itself from U.S. History 2?
Mr. President, Mr. Pickowitz, U.S. History 2 ends usually the most they can get is up to around the Vietnam era. And we had student interest, we had teacher interest in covering history from that era to present. So US 3. We're looking forward to it. We have some very energetic, engaging teachers who are ready to take it on, and the students seem excited.
All right, thanks.
Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes. Finance and Insurance Agenda, Mr. Tamburello.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance and Insurance Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following 15 items. This evening, I move for the adoption of the foregoing 15 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Tamburello. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Zullo. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes. Security and School Safety Agenda, Mr. Delapietro.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Security and School Safety Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, presents the following one item. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Delapietro. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Tamburello. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes. Technology Agenda, Mr. Saldana, please.
The Technology Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following two items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Sedana. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Anderson. Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes. Athletics and Extracurricular Agenda, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Athletics and Extracurricular Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 4 recommendations. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Ms. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Tamburello. Any comments or questions from the board?
Through the Board President,
Mr. Tamburello.
if I could indulge the board for a little bit, I think this was a pretty special winter season for a lot of our sports. I want to highlight a couple of the things. Our rep from Woodbridge mentioned a few earlier. The girls' track and field at Woodbridge, some outstanding achievements this winter season. Shelby Picnic over at Colonia High School, just an outstanding achievement on a personal level. I mentioned the track team at Woodbridge High. Colonia for the first time in finals in hockey, not Colonia, I'm sorry. Woodbridge United team from Woodbridge JFK and Colonia had a special season this year. It just seemed like every week these kids were reaching just a plateau that they weren't used to, or a new level of competition. And again, I wanted to highlight a couple of those. So again, Coach Monty, even this evening, we have Colonia High School in the GMC final for basketball. Good luck to them. They're actually probably playing or tipping off very soon. Good luck to them. Last but certainly not least, I think a great achievement with Coach Small over at Woodbridge High School and the boys bowling team. She did the same thing over at Colonia. She's doing it at Woodbridge, and that is, you beat everybody. The tournament that she won, you beat everybody in the state. So again, we had a lot of great accomplishments and achievements in sports somehow this winter. It just seems like every week we were just going to another level. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of those. And certainly to Coach Small over at Woodbridge, that was an outstanding job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Timberell. Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public?
Hello, I'm Charity Daramola from Woodbridge High School. In terms of winter sports, I'm a member of the Woodbridge High School track team. During our season, we were hindered from attending a lot of our track meets due to the fact that busing was no longer available to go to meets outside of New Jersey. So a lot of the meets that we had on our schedule that were in New York, such as the Armory, which is like one of the best places to throw, one of the best places to run in terms of an indoor track, we couldn't go to. So it kind of changed our whole schedule around, and it affected our funding drastically, especially because we had this one meet we went to in New York, but we already had to pay thousands of dollars, which we did not have because of lack of funding and the ability to raise funds. So I want to ask, how can we make this a solution for the winter track team in the next couple of years? Because I think that it's injustice, and it's not, I don't think it's fair for us, especially because there's limited facilities. There's not enough time and effort for us to raise the funds. And I think that since we have brought forth so much success, I think that we should have the funding, the busing, everything to do so. So I wanted to know your viewpoints on how to make money for that and allocate funds for that.
Mr. President, hello again.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great.
Didn't we rectify that towards the end of the year after we spoke at Woodbridge High?
You didn't clearly state exactly what the solution was. You gave me some hope and then nothing happened.
I spoke with the transportation director. We're going to try and see if we could narrow down the number of events and then make sure that you get to them. But it's hard to go to, out of state every week, as you can imagine. So yes, we will work it out. No worries.
And another issue I think is how do we ensure that each sport has the same amount of support and funding? Because I feel that not only in my school, but in other schools around the district, that there are certain sports that have a greater advantage. For example, I take AP Government and Politics at JFK High School, so I have to drive there myself. And students in my class that play other sports have emphasized the fact that as members of either the track team or a softball team or other sports teams, they don't get as much support and in terms of funding and as well as support from their athletic directors compared to other things. So how would you find solutions for that, especially since a lot of these sports are based off of funding, not just our own money, but the district as well?
So each school gets a certain amount of money for extracurriculars. That includes sports. And they kind of get to divide it up how they want. And usually it's based on numbers. So let's say Colonia might have 90 student athletes on the track team where Woodbridge only has 40. Their budget's going to be bigger. There are some sports that are more expensive. Obviously, football is the most expensive sport, so they get more money. But to answer your question, in order to make sure that you are funded so that you have all of the opportunities that you're looking for, talk to your coach, have your coach talk to the AD, and Mr. Lotman, I know, is a huge supporter of all the extracurricular activities, and again, we'll work that out to make sure that you have everything you want. You may not get everything you want, but at least ask for everything you want, and we'll see what we can work out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Triebwasser?
Yes. Transportation, Mr. Velez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Transportation Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator, Board Secretary, present the following 4 items, and I recommend for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Velez. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Anderson. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Triebwasser?
Yes. Personnel agenda, Mr. Molnar.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Personnel Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Director of Personnel Services, presents the following. Tonight, I will be moving 35 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Molnar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Zullo. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Zullo?
Yes.
Mr. Triebwasser?
I will abstain on the name Linda Triebwasser in item 15. I will abstain on the name Valerie Henderson in item 28. Yes on all other items.
Thank you.
Mr. Bush, do you have any recommendations this evening?
None, Mr. President. Thank you.
Is there any old business that should be brought to the attention of the board?
To the Board President,
Yes, sir, Mr. Tamburello.
I'd like to congratulate our tech team for presenting at Texpo in late January. We had the opportunity to also go down. I did not catch the presentation, but by all accounts, great job by them in highlighting what it is we do with technology in the district. We also had an opportunity to look at some innovation and things with security and technology while there at Texpo. Thank the district for sending a few of us down. Also on February 3rd, if anybody remembers, it was a very cold Saturday morning where we hosted the Ed Camp Blitz here at Woodbridge High School, and that was also a great event. Very well attended from districts and educators from around the state. It seemed like the center of the educational universe in New Jersey was in Woodbridge High that morning. A lot of energy and excitement there, and so congratulations to all the folks that put that on. Again, the Ed Camp Blitz, every year we seem to be hosting it, and I look forward to doing it again. And finally, if you have not gotten a chance, and Dr. Zaga, I don't know what the upcoming schedule is for one of Dr. Zaga's drug abuse prevention discussions in the schools. Myself, Mr. Treebwasser, I believe Mr. Harris attended Island Middle. It's very informative. It's not a happy topic, but it's a topic that we need to discuss. And again, if you get an opportunity, and Dr. Zaga, again, if you're continuing to do those, try to get out there and be part of one of these discussions. Thank you for the time. Again, Dr. Zaga, if you want to highlight a couple of upcoming events.
Sure, Mr. Timberlow. I'll be Monday at Colonial Middle School at 6:30 for the Drug Abuse Prevention Parent Forum, and also on Wednesday at Colonial High School at 6:30 for the Drug Abuse Prevention Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning.
Any other old business to come before the board? Is there any new business to be brought before the attention of the board?
Mr. President,
Mr. Molnar.
tonight, during your roll call, people might notice that board member Dan Harris is not with us. The Harris family suffered a great loss yesterday with the sudden passing of Dan's father, Fred Harris. Fred Harris was a retired police officer for the Township of Woodbridge, and the Harris family have been serving public service for the Township of Woodbridge for a very long time. Fred was a retired police officer. His two sons, Patrick and Michael, are members of the police department. Dan is an elected member here with the Board of Education. He's also an aide to Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin. And Kathy Harris is the secretary in our district over at School 25. We can't imagine the loss they're going through, and this Board of Education, our thoughts and prayers are with the Harris family, also the Township of Woodbridge, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Molnar. Does anybody have anything else?
I just have one other quick, well, I don't know if it's going to be quick, but we think about what happened this past week in Parkland, Florida, at the Stoneman Douglas High School. And I know that this community and this Board of Education, our hearts and prayers go out to all the families that were affected by this tragedy. And this tragedy really, really affects this country as a whole. And I know I'm not supposed to be up here because this is not a political body. And I'm not going to keep it political, because looking at that town hall style meeting and seeing what came from this tragedy, this group of young men and women who are now basically taking this country by storm. You know, this is a group of a generation that has basically been criticized that they're on their computers, they're playing video games, they don't talk to one another, they don't communicate, they're on their cell phone, they text, yada, yada, yada. But after all this, I am so proud that they are the future of this country, because they are taking a stand against probably one of the biggest giants that could be out there, the lobbying group, the NRA. And if you look at that last night, that town hall meeting that was on there, you had, and you know what? And the one person I'll really give a lot of credit to is Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, because he was probably the one that the deck was stacked against him going into it. But I give him credit for having the courage to go there. And actually, the young men and women and the parents actually got him to change his position a little bit. But the real issue with this country is the next group that came up after him, the sheriff from Broward County and the spokesman for the NRA. Because it's not political. I'm not here to say all guns should be outlawed and guns should be taken away. But yeah, a certain style of weapon in my heart really should be taken away. and that was the assault weapon. That has no place on the streets, and that's my opinion, and I'm not speaking for any of my fellow board members, and I just want to take this opportunity to finally get this off my chest. And the safety of our children is the utmost thing on this Board of Education. We could have the best curriculum, we could have everything, but if our children don't feel safe and we don't keep our children safe, it doesn't mean anything. Now, we do have policies in place, and we do have a safety protocol that we do have in place, and I'm proud of it. We started this, and I think we've been told that in the state of New Jersey, they call it the Woodbridge model. So other districts are trying to catch up to what we have in place already. And that comes in with the cooperation of our staff, and it comes into the cooperation, too, of our students. You guys have a role in this, too. You know, we live in a pressure cooker society, and we ask our students, treat your fellow students the way you would want to be treated. We don't need to bully anybody. We don't need to pick on anybody. We don't need anybody to push somebody else to the edge. And this group of individuals down in Parkland now who are a voice out there, a voice to be reckoned with, you know, we're hearing, you know, through the grapevine that we have students in our own district that want to join, you know, a national rally that's going to take place. And you know what? And I'll applaud every student in this district that wants to do that. And whatever I could do, I will help you. But I'm going to ask you to do it respectively, do it with discipline, and do it lawfully. And we do have a student rep meeting, don't we, Dr. Zaga, coming up this week?
Yes.
If the students in this district want to participate in this march and have your voices heard, I would like to use that meeting as the dialogue to find out what you guys want to do. So everybody and all the students are on the same page when they do this. I don't want this just to be just a mass walkout for kids just to get out of third block or fourth block. Let's do it where it's organized, and like I said, it's within our policies and it's within the law. We've, going through security and safety in our district, we have basically tried to retrofit 60-year-old to 100-year-old buildings to be within safety guidelines. Now we're at the cusp of building two brand new schools. And I'll ask Dr. Zaga, in those plans when we met with the architects, were safety, the new and latest safety initiatives put into these plans? Thickness of walls, materials of walls, windows, doors, intercom systems, clocks, everything. Was that put into this, the planning?
Yes, sir, Mr. Molnar.
The one thing I just want to leave everybody with, and it's an excerpt from a speech that was delivered in 1963 by President Kennedy. It was the address to the graduating class at American University. We had just gotten over the Cuban Missile Crisis during that fall. But we could basically substitute some of these words to fit our world today with the battle between the gun lobby, blue state, red state, and the predicament we're in as this country. So the excerpt from the speech was, so let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and to the means by which those differences can be resolved. If we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world as safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, the most important, the most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet, we all breathe the same air, we all cherish our children's future, and we are all mortal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molnar. Very well said. Just one thing to say, that Mr. Molnar, you're absolutely correct in what you're saying, very passionate about it, and certainly I know that I respect everything that you said and support it 100%. One last thing that I'd like to bring up is that on the 4th, there is a Chili Fest And there will also be a spaghetti dinner at the Colonia Fire Department for a 4-year-old girl in Colonia who's suffering from brain cancer. Debbie Meehan is running these programs. Her number is 732-382-0273. If anybody is interested in donating raffles, baskets, or anything of that ilk to help this child and hopefully have a full recovery. Thank you. In keeping with our past practice, we will open this portion of the meeting for statements from the public. If you wish to say something, please come to the microphone, provide your name, address for the record, and please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes in accordance with Regulation 1100D. Mr. Pinkwitz, please state your name and where you're from.
David Pinkwitz, Island. I wanted to talk a little bit about technology in the schools and more specifically for part of it, the 8th grade iPad program, which my youngest daughter has been partaking in this year. So, and with my comments, I'll give some things that I think worked well, other things that I think really seriously need looking at. And my comments will also stretch to other technology. And let me just state my general feeling about technology, which is the goal of technology is to be used as a tool to make, whatever we're doing easier. It's not good by itself. It doesn't make people learn better by itself. It still requires real teaching. It still requires, quality materials to learn. So one of the things that was done, and just to clarify for anybody that's listening to me, I think the board is well aware, but anybody else listening, is all 8th graders, at the beginning of the year, we received a kind of a permission slip saying, here's what will happen if you break your iPads, and we're giving iPads to every student in the 8th grade, and they'll be used across the curriculum in the various classes. And they've been used in different ways. I think it's worked very well in things for certain items, like, for example, the integration of Google Classroom, Google Docs, and the various applications that are used, let's say to write, as an example, to write a paper, respond, maybe there's creating a survey, respond to various assignments. I think that's worked well. And I can't speak, my children have had access to computers before this iPad program. I'm sure there's other students that don't have easy access. So I think that part's worked well. I think it's given access, assuming, and obviously this assumes that you have internet access at home, to do research on the iPad, and obviously it could be used within the school environment in the classrooms. That part I can't speak to as much since I'm not obviously in the classroom. But I've noticed the desire to kind of shoehorn everything into the iPad initiative. So there were assignments, and I'll give it for example, in math class. Assignments that essentially have to be working at a problem done by, typically what we would do is a notebook, pencil, and do an assignment, and in the past you would hand it in to say, well, we need to hand in the assignment. So now you have two choices. You can try to do it with the iPads that are provided, and keep in mind these aren't iPad Pros, so you don't have an Apple Pencil that has a fine point. We're talking about kids on their own can purchase, and many have a stylus, but a stylus on a basic iPad does not work as well as it does on, for example, an iPad Pro, which costs a lot more money. You could do the work that way. You could take a picture of your work. But in either case, my concern is the natural way to do the assignments are pencil and paper. And to shoehorn it into the iPad just because they have them doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, I think it should be used where it makes sense, and it shouldn't be used where it doesn't make sense. That's my opinion. And because if you have to do it anyway, then and when the children take their tests, they're not doing it on their iPad. They're doing it on a piece of paper with a pencil. So to me, there are places, and that's just an example, but and I'm sure there are individual assignments even in other classes where the same would apply. Do it where it makes sense. Don't do it where it doesn't make sense. Now, online assignments in general. The board, and this has happened over the years, way before the iPad program, has invested in various services for children to perform various tasks most commonly in math, but it's been used in other classes as well. And I have no problem, I think, as a way to practice and to have some immediate feedback, it's great. What does concern me a little bit is when assignments are given and expected to be learned simply from the online assignments, that teachers still have a role to play here, and they should always have a role. And regardless of the level of the class, don't assume because the kid's not generally struggling that they're in an advanced class, an honors class, that they don't need a teacher's impact. Everyone does. There's a reason why college students complain when when a professor cares more about research than they do about teaching their undergraduates. It's because all students need teachers. And I get a little concerned sometimes where I feel the online assignments are replacing the effort of the teaching at times. The other quick concern, and I'll wrap up, is in the past, well, there's no explicit hourly requirement on homework. The one limiting factor that's always existed is if a teacher gives homework, they're responsible to grade the homework. Now you have these online tools that allow you to give 20 problems, 50 problems, whatever, pick your number, and the computer grades it. So there's no effort. Once it's given, the only thing the teacher has to do is get the number of the result and put it in the grade book. And so I think that needs to be managed a little better at times to make sure the children do have an opportunity, like people that go to work have an opportunity to have family time at home, that they don't get overwhelmed with too much work simply because there's no real feedback to the teacher about how much work they're given. They would have that feedback if they were grading it personally, but they don't have to. And as you go forward, and I don't know what's in the budget as you propose it, but I urge to get feedback on this program, seek it out from the teachers, from the students, from the other parents, and, seriously consider every time you adopt any kind of technology initiative, where does it help, and also where might it hurt, and make sure that we're doing the right thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkowitz. Is there any other comments or questions from the public?
Hi, my name is Charity Daramola. I go to Woodbridge High School. I'm referring back to his comment about technology in schools. I think that technology personally has helped me. I've taken Advancing with Apple at Woodbridge High School and with Ms. Cuevas, and I think that in terms of the amount of paper, I still use paper in all my other classes. I still have to use it in other classes, but in that class we don't use paper. She made it a paperless class to be conscious about the environment and to be conscious about how we should be able to not only be able to write on paper, but be able to use technology, because you're going to have to use it when you go into any place of work, regardless of where you go. And I think that if you're looking for living proof, I think that I'm a testimony to what the education system has done. And I think that in terms of teachers grading it, teachers are actually putting in work to figure out what problems they're going to put online. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to throw this on there and then you're just going to do it yourself. Teachers are actually putting in effort. And I think that in terms of using iPads for elementary and middle school students, I've had the ability to work with elementary students and they knew more than I did. And I think that's better than us just letting younger kids be stagnant and not be able to have technological resources that they could take advantage of. So I think that in terms of the effects on us, I think it's making us smarter. I also think it's helping us because there's a lot of classes that you're going to take that require you to write in pencil and paper or on pen and paper, but not every class is going to require you to use an iPad. So I think the ability to use it gives you an opportunity to take advantage of, especially when no other districts have these programs like this, and the ability to have it, we should just be grateful for it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments or questions from the public?
Hi, Sue Bordian, Ridgedale Avenue, Woodbridge. I just have a question about the ability to sell food as fundraisers. I guess we're not allowed to do that anymore, and that is a big hit to our summer program as well as our elementary school. Can we get some clarification on that? Is it across the board, no?
Thanks. There will be something coming out from administration telling what is going to be permissible and what is not permissible in the schools, and it will be done with in accordance with what the state and federal regulations are allowing.
Okay.
And we'll certainly give you every latitude possible, but it has to be within the guidelines.
Okay, and does that include the summer, that obviously then includes the summer program?
It'll include everything that the state and federal government says we can do within the school day.
Okay,
If there is latitude within the summer program that enables us to allow you to do that, when we certainly will.
Okay.
We certainly don't want to hinder your fundraising, and we certainly don't want to do anything that's going to stifle it. However, we have to make sure that we're compliant with state and federal regulation.
perfect. We're just trying to plan. Thank you.
We understand. Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions for the board? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion?
Motion by Mr. Molnar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Delapietro. All those in favor? Aye. Carried. Meeting adjourned.